What's going on, everybody? It's Tanner Lee of the Kicking Out Podcast, and I am pumped and pleased to have a guest here to interview this evening. Good friend of mine, good friend of the podcast, JPJ of Love Wrestling. JPJ, what's going on, my friend?
Not much, man. Excited to be here. Excited to chat with you. Yeah, we've been on each other's shows. We've done a lot of stuff together. So when you threw this out to me about kind of doing this little one-on-one thing, I'm super excited. So yeah, man, we're good. We're good. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah. This is something I've wanted to do for a while. I had your co-host of the Between Two Beards, Pluggo, on year and a half ago, and just
Hmm.
chatted, about wrestling and his fandom, and I wanted to do the same with you.
Yeah.
So I guess let's start there. When did you get into pro wrestling? When did you become a fan?
Oh boy. Yeah. So yeah, no, I'm gonna throw my age out there, but it was really like early '90s for me.
Okay.
I remember, we would go over my grandparents' house like every Saturday for lunch. We called it dinner.
Hmm.
Old Italian people. So we would go over there for like a dinner on Saturday afternoons, and he would always have the wrestling like on the TV on like Saturday afternoons. And I didn't know anything about it really. I was 5, 6 years old, but I remember seeing it and being like, "Oh, what's that?" And I would watch it with them, but nothing crazy. And then I don't know how we got there. I think it was over his house, but the thing that sticks out to me of like the first time that I remember watching wrestling is like SummerSlam '92 at Wembley. I don't know if we were over there and it was just on or we were somewhere, but I vividly remember watching SummerSlam '92 live. I was at the time, probably I was 7, I would say, like 7 years old. And I remember the first people that come out at WrestleMania, at SummerSlam '92 are the Legion of Doom. And they come out on the motorcycles, and they had Paul Ellering who had the doll, and it was like daytime because it was in England, so it was like, oh, it's nighttime but it's daytime. And I just remember seeing these guys, and they had the face paint, they had the motorcycles, they had the shoulder pads with the spikes and the music. And I just remember just immediately being like, what is this? Like, what is this? They were superheroes. And that's like the first thing that I can remember. And then I just remember kind of watching and watching. I don't think I was watching weekly or anything like that because I was so little, but I remember just keeping up with it. I throughout the whole time of the early to mid '90s, I was a fan, a regular fan, all the way through when they were kind of making that transition from like Hogan to Bret Hart and like the kind of smaller guys and things like that. And then shortly after that, you're talking '96, '97, the Attitude Era is starting, which is like the height of everything. And I'm 11, 12 years old, like the height of my childhood when you get obsessed with things you love and just
Hmm.
that thing. And I remember it was baseball and it was wrestling. And those were the two things at that age that I was like, I am obsessed with these. I want to learn. I read books. I would go to back in the day, they used to have video stores where you'd go rent videos and games, and we would go
Oh,
as a
I
family.
remember.
Yeah, we would go every Friday. We would go as a family. They would let me rent one video game. My parents would let me rent one video game and one old wrestling tape. They would rent whatever movie they were gonna watch, like when we were in bed, and like have their, whatever, their night. And that's what it started for me. Like I would rent all the old WWF tapes, like the Coliseum videos. I would rent the old Royal Rumbles, the old Survivor Series, like all of them. And I just was encapsulated by it. And it just kind of went from there. And then I got to the age where the Attitude Era was happened. Stone Cold happened when I was 13 years old. WrestleMania 14 was in Boston. I was in the building. I was a junior in high school. Not even. I don't even think no, I think that's a lie. I think I was in like 7th or 8th grade. I don't even know. And it was just like, it was like the perfect timing for me, like my age. And then it was just like, okay. And I've really never looked back. I've really never looked back.
So you get into it during the New Gen era, and then
Yeah.
up through the Attitude Era, of course, and the Monday Night Wars. Now, were you a WCW guy at all, or were you pretty much strictly WWF?
Um, I mean, I started as a WWF guy, 100%.
Sure.
When the Monday Night Wars got to its height, especially when the NW look at personal crap aside with the dude. When Hogan turned heel, that was like the biggest thing that ever happened.
Oh,
It
sure,
was the
sure,
biggest thing that
sure.
ever happened.
Mhm.
And when he turned heel and formed the NWO, that was the first time I remembered like people talking about WCW in my
Mhm.
wrestling circles, right?
Yeah.
Even though I was a kid, like that was my friends are like, yo, and I watched both. I was strictly a WWF guy. Like I would watch that, but I would flip to Nitro during commercials. I used to tape them both on VHS so I could like go back and watch it after if I was watching one over the other. But it was very much hey, I'm watching Raw, but during the commercials, I'm watching Nitro. But it was also one of those things where if there was a big match on Nitro, I was probably watching the big match on Nitro, and then I would go back and check what was happening on Raw. So it was really like a balance
Yeah.
almost. But I always lean towards WWF because that's what I first got into. And like my first favorite wrestler ever was the Macho Man. I love the Macho Man. Now, at the time I got into wrestling, at least on the WWF side of things, he was past his in-ring peak there. He
Mhm.
was commentary, but he had, we all know the outfits, the tassels. How could you
Oh,
not?
yeah.
The voice, just everything he did. Um, and then I really loved Bret Hart. I was a super duper Bret Hart guy. Still one of my all-time favorites. Um, so I was really strictly a WWF guy, but when we were in the heart of the wars, I was paying attention to both. I was
Yeah.
really paying attention to both. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say if you pulled most wrestling fans from the 90s, I'd be shocked if any of them were just one company or the other.
Yeah.
I think everybody kind of had their finger on the pulse of both, at least.
Mm-hmm.
And back then it was you had the picture in picture on the TV. You
Yep.
had the TVs could do that back in the day. So
Yes, they could.
I know a lot of people that did that. So was there ever a period post 90s, in 2000s, 2010s, was there ever a period your fandom kind of fell off where you didn't follow it as closely? Because I know personally that happened to me for a little while before I got back into it. And I know it's happened to a lot of other
Yeah.
wrestling fans out there. Did you ever have a period of like that happen to you?
Yeah, for sure. I dropped out. Not like dropped out. Like I still read the dirt sheets. I went to
Sure.
WrestleZone all the time. Like, I
Mhm.
still was keeping up with the product, but once I kind of so I would say yeah, when the ruthless aggression era first started, I was still watching wrestling regularly and going to all the shows when they came to the Boston area and things like that. But I would say probably that window of like 2005 or 6, somewhere around, when I was turning like 19, 20, I'm in
Yeah.
college, I'm working full time as well.
Right.
And like, listen, as a 20-year-old dude in college, my priorities were a little different. All right. My priorities weren't, hey, I need to be home on Mondays from 9 to 11 to watch Raw. It was, oh, there's a party there. Yeah, let's go to the party. Let's go to the
Yes.
party.
Yes. Yeah.
And like just
100%.
the
Yeah.
priorities were different. I was living my life.
Right.
It was early 20s. I was, but I still paid attention to it. I still, you know, the big pay-per-views I still purchased. I still paid attention. It was really like, yeah, I want to say it was probably like after WrestleMania 21. I don't think I kind of took a little bit of a dip where I wasn't watching regularly. I was paying attention to what was going on, but I wasn't watching. It was really Shawn Michaels versus The Undertaker at WrestleMania 25 that got me back.
Gotcha.
That was the one that got me back. And I didn't even watch WrestleMania 25 live. Like I didn't watch it live. I had just heard from my wrestling friends of like, this is the greatest match of all time. Like of all time, they had the
Hmm.
best match ever. And these were two guys that I grew up watching because they were there in the early 90s when I started watching. They had been two guys that had been in my wrestling life, my whole wrestling life. And so I went back and I watched the match, and it's as incredible as it still is. Um, and that really got me back into it. And I started watching more regularly. And then there were two guys that stuck out to me of like the newer people that I was into. One of them was Dolph Ziggler. Loved Dolph Ziggler. Um, and then obviously CM Punk. And then CM Punk kind of went into the summer of Punk a few years after I had just kind of gotten back into it and things of that nature. And then that was kind of like when that whole thing was happening with Punk, that's when I was like, okay, I cannot miss what's happening anymore. Like, you always love this shit. Like, you have to, like, and it kind of, yeah. And I haven't left since. So, yeah.
Yep. I love hearing those stories of like when people did kind of dip out or didn't pay as
Yeah.
close of attention to what got them back in. For
Mm,
me, I was young during the Attitude Eras, but that's when I got into it. And then one day my parents kind of tuned in closely and said, I don't think you need to be watching this so much. So I reluctantly, not to, not, not by my decision,
Yeah,
stopped
yeah,
watching from about 2000 to 2003, got back in pretty heavily 2003 to about '07. Then I got into high school. And like you kind of said with college, priorities changed a little bit.
yeah.
And then actually my freshman year in college, I literally was just flipping through the channel one night on Monday Night Raw, and it happened to be the episode that The Rock returned
Oh yeah,
to
it's a good
be
one.
the WrestleMania host
WrestleMania
for
host. Yeah,
27.
yeah,
And kind of like you with Taker and Sean, I'm like, that was my guy.
yeah.
That was the guy I grew up with. So instantly that got me back in, started watching it heavily again. And then 2018, it started to get a little stale for me. I was still watching every week, but it was
Of
kind of
course.
background noise to me.
Hmm.
I was keeping up with the dirt sheets. And then, I started hearing more about Cody Rhodes and these guys named Matt and Nick Jackson, the Young Bucks, and this guy named Kenny Omega. Started kind of following them, and then All In happened.
Hmm.
And then now what we know as AEW in the start of 2019. That's when I got fully in heavier than I've
Oh
ever
yeah,
been up until this day.
and
So
and yeah, and you talk about it like, yeah, I mean, there was a stretch there, and those mid 2010s, they were coasting, man.
yeah,
WWE,
there was some
WWE
hard
was
stuff
it
to
was
watch.
bad, dude. It was bad, and there were not saying everything was bad. There were obviously great moments and
Right,
things like
right.
that, and like there were things I loved and things like that. But it felt like there was no competition. They knew there was no competition. They knew nobody was going to leave. Nobody was going to stop watching them. Even as much as we bitched and we
Yep.
moaned and we said this is
Yep.
trash. We've seen this match for the last 4 weeks in a row. Another roll up finish. Like it was just the same crap over and over and over again. And it was tough. Like I remember like watching some of those 3 hour Raws and it felt like a chore.
Oh
It felt
yeah,
like a
yeah,
chore. And it was like, I
100%.
don't, yeah. And it was one of those things where it's like, that's not how I want to feel when I watch wrestling. I watch wrestling because I love it. Like,
Hmm.
and I want to watch wrestling because I want to have a good time because I love watching wrestling. And for that bit, like you said, 2018, that whole stretch there for a little bit,
Yeah.
it was tough. It was tough. And then the AEW, the independent stuff happened. I thought the
Yep.
Cody Rhodes leaving WWE and then kind of doing what he did and those Kenny Omega, those other guys, and obviously Tony Khan being like the business guy of it. Like it was kind of the perfect time for all of
Sure
that
was.
to happen because I did feel like in my whole wrestling fandom, I did feel like that 2017, 2018, even though I don't think anybody would have stopped watching or left, I did feel like, at least in the circles of people that I talked and watched wrestling with, I did feel like we were the closest to our wits' end than we
Yep.
had ever been.
Yep.
And that was
Yep.
the vibe I got. And then
Yep.
AEW kind of, you heard the rumblings and all this stuff, and it was like, oh, damn, all right, something new, something different. Like, this is cool. And Cody was the face. We knew Cody Rhodes. We knew his
Hmm.
father. We knew his history. We knew him from WWE. Like, he was the guy. And then they get Jericho. And at the time, Jericho was still a massive deal.
Yep.
And
Yep.
they got Jericho, and it was like, okay, that is more legitimacy to what we're doing here with Chris Jericho. And you got Cody, and then you got these stars that you heard of from New Japan and Kenny Omega and the Bucks and all these. And then they started bringing in the rest, and it was just like the perfect
Yep. Perfect storm.
snowball of events. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Um,
Absolutely.
yeah. And then I think, there's been ups and downs and all that stuff, but I really think that like since 2018, 2019, like I feel like the wrestling landscape, as much as the fans try to make it as hard as they can, I do feel like it's better than ever. And
Oh
it's
yeah.
like there's so much to watch, there's so much good to watch.
Yes. Yes.
Um, and we're just in a really good place. If you pay attention too much to social media and stuff, a lot of people will try to tell you we're not, but we're in a good place. You can watch a good wrestling show every night of the week if you really want to.
Yep. Yep.
Every night
And
of
then
the week.
that was gonna be my next question was what's it like being a wrestling fan in 2025? Because we were complaining earlier, WWE knew at one time they were the only big dog in town.
Mhm.
And now there's so many promotions doing so many good things. And like you said, if you want to watch pro wrestling every night, you can do that.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's
Amazing.
incredible. It's really incredible when you think about it. And there's like, and now we're in an era now where you got AEW and there seem to be hitting a stride again. Their programming has been pretty
Yeah.
good these last
Yeah.
few
They've been,
months. They
yeah.
seem to be
Hmm.
doing some good stuff again. WWE is hotter than ever. And then just the positivity behind WWE, I feel like, is higher than it's been in the last 15 to 20 years, I feel like.
Yep. I agree.
And then you got TNA, who's doing really good stuff on their own,
Mhm.
but now they have a business agreement with WWE, and we're seeing Joe Hendry pop up in the Rumble, and you're seeing
Mhm.
Jordan Grace making her way over there. And like we're seeing some, they just had Fandango come back for like a one-off, which was cool. Like it's just things that we wouldn't have thought were possible a long time ago. You would have never thought WWE would work with any
Oh,
other
no.
thing like
No.
that. Like I know they did the ECW stuff in the early 90s, which ECW also, I did not mention them, a huge factor in my wrestling fandom because that was mid 90s. That was I loved ECW, and I know ECW gets a lot of credit, and I know Paul Heyman and his status is where it should be. I don't think ECW gets enough credit because the Attitude Era, Nitro, all that stuff does not happen if ECW is not doing what they're doing.
Yeah, very
And
good point.
I just feel like, you look at the Attitude Era, you look at all the violent matches, the chair show, all the things that we remember about the Attitude Era, they got that from ECW.
Yeah, started there.
ECW was doing that stuff. You know what
Mhm.
I mean? So I feel like, it does have its rightful place in history. And I do think when you look back and you think about ECW, we think of it fondly, as we should. But I almost feel like it doesn't get enough credit because I feel like the Attitude Era, just all of that doesn't happen without ECW around. And
Yeah,
it's
very
just,
good point.
when you look back at it that point. So I wanted to mention them because I didn't earlier, but
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
they were a huge thing for me when I was getting into my wrestling fandom in the 90s as well. But yeah, we're just at a point now. And like you said, and there's so much good independent
Oh, yeah.
stuff now too. Like it's crazy. Like MLW does great stuff. Obviously, New
Mhm.
Japan is still very good.
Mhm.
And then you have all these other places you can go. Like I can go 10 minutes down the street and see like Dijak is fighting in 20 minutes away from me
That's
tomorrow
crazy.
night on a Friday night. On Friday night, this Friday night, Dijak is fighting there. Now,
Yeah.
Dijak's from around my area. He's been an independent guy in my area the whole time in Massachusetts. That's where he's from. But like still, like that guy was a WWE superstar for the last 7 years
Yeah.
before,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like, and it's like,
Mhm.
I remember when Cody left WWE before he started AEW, he was fighting in the high school gym in the town that I
Yeah.
live in. And I'm like,
Isn't
what the
that
hell are we
wild?
doing? That's Cody Rhodes. What are we doing? But it's like, and like that type of stuff, it's just better than ever. And it's
Oh,
just,
yeah.
there's so much to do. And there's new people getting into wrestling,
Yep.
and like mainstream is getting into wrestling again, which it
Yep.
hasn't been since the Attitude Era. It's just that it's a really good spot. It's a really,
Yep.
really good spot.
Yep, and fans who might have, tuned out for a while, I think
Mhm.
more are coming back. I think Netflix has a big thing to do with that, and I think Max a little bit on an AEW, not as heavily as
Yeah.
Netflix and WWE, but it just kills me, like, you see so much tribalism online, and the IWC is more negative than it is
Oh, yeah.
positive. That's why it's internet wrestling community, but what makes me frustrated is I don't think a lot of people realize the IWC is only a small portion of the wrestling fans.
Mhm.
They don't speak for all of us.
No.
That's the thing that drives me nuts. I mean, yes, you're going to see more negativity. That's social media and the internet in 2025. Unfortunately, it can be used for positive, but more people choose to use it for the negative side of things.
It's a lot easier to hate on things than it is to like
Yes, it
things.
is.
And or
Very well put.
it just feels that's the culture that we have is it's a lot
Yep.
easier to shit on something than
Yep.
it is to say that you love something. I don't know why. I don't know what got us to
Yeah.
that
People
point.
think it's cool for some
Yeah.
reason.
It's
I
like and
don't know
like
why.
yeah, it became a cool thing to not like the thing that everybody else likes. And
Yep.
it's like, okay, that's not like hipster anymore, dude. You just look like a jerk.
You look like an
Is what
idiot. Yeah, you look
Yeah,
like
you
an
look like
idiot.
a
Yep.
moron. Like, cut it out.
Yep.
Like, it's
Yep.
okay. Like, if you look at you're talking to I do a show for Love Wrestling. I do multiple shows. Obviously, me and
Yeah.
Pluggo Beards talk about a little bit of everything. But I do a
Mhm.
show every week with Drew where we talk about WWE one day and then we
Yep.
talk about AEW one day.
Yep.
I love both. That
Yep.
is okay. It is okay
Yep.
to like both. I don't have to favorite one over the other.
Nope.
And guess what? Since AEW's been there for the last 5.5 years, there have been times where I preferred AEW over WWE. And then there have been times where I prefer WWE over AEW. That is
Sure.
normal. That is normal.
Yep.
That is okay. You don't have
Yep.
to just like one. You don't have to
Nope.
like one or the other. You don't have to like, I understand their competition and we can compare and contrast. Fine. I'm cool with that.
Mhm.
But just because I like something that happened on WWE and you're an AEW guy, that doesn't mean that you have to tell me that I'm an idiot because I like
Right.
something on WWE. Like, I don't care that you don't like WWE. I
Right.
don't
Yeah.
care. That
Yeah.
is your choice. Guess what?
Yes.
I don't like country music. Okay. I listen
Mhm.
to punk, metal, hardcore. I'm a heavy music guy. I don't like pop music. I don't like country music. You know, the people that
Yep.
I'm close to, my friends and my family, I'll rag on them and I'll do, but that's all in jet. Like, I'm kidding. But like,
All in fun. Yeah.
if I met someone on the street and they told me they were a country fan, I'm not going to be like, bro, you suck. You
Yeah.
like country music, you're an idiot. That's just not how it works.
I know. It's
It's just
wild.
very bizarre. It's very bizarre.
It is. It's wild. And at the end of the day, it is all these wrestling promotions are putting on, well, the ones who have TV are putting on TV shows for our entertainment. It's
Mm,
like you watch multiple TV shows, you watch multiple streaming services. I
mm.
mean, we're not ripping on you for that. It
No.
just, yeah, the whole the whole thought process behind
Yeah.
it's
It's
just
just like,
mind
dude.
blowing to me. But
Yeah. And like, we're all wrestling fans, or
yes,
at least, I mean, some of these people, I question whether they even like wrestling at all. I'm like, why do you even watch the shows? Why do you even
right,
watch the shows?
yeah,
Because everything I see you put on here is negative. So
negative. Yep,
if you are that negative all the time, that cannot be good for your mental health.
can't.
Go to a bar. Just go
Yes,
do something else. Because clearly this isn't working for you.
yes,
So figure it
yeah,
out,
yeah,
you know?
yeah.
But
No, you're right.
it's just like, I don't know, man. It's just a very weird. I think a lot of us are starting to find good ways to kind of like tune it out or kind of
Mhm,
like filter it to a point where we don't see
mhm,
as much as was in our face. But it's
yep.
it used to be kind of a one-lining joke or something like that. But like it feels like nobody hates wrestling more than wrestling fans.
100%. I
And it
love
makes
how
no
you put
sense to
that.
me because we
No,
are a
just
very small niche community.
yes,
We should be
yes,
like, that's like, you were just at the Royal Rumble
mhm,
and we were there too doing media stuff. Like,
yeah,
and you're from that area, like that's your
yeah,
state, and so isn't Pluggo, like that's your state, that's your
yep.
area. That was like Indianapolis and Indiana's
Oh, it's
time to show
awesome.
the wrestling world,
Awesome.
like, hey man, we
Mhm,
are a big wrestling hotbed. We should be considered like you consider Chicago and New York and Boston and LA.
mhm,
And
mhm,
you did.
mhm.
But like, when you're in the area, like that whole Royal Rumble weekend, like you could feel the camaraderie of
Yes,
all the fans together. Like, you go to a
yes,
bar and you see somebody wearing a wrestling shirt and they see you wearing something and you're like, hell yeah, you high five, or somebody will say something. If you're wearing, I used to wear Bullet Club shirts. I would have somebody
yep,
go like, too sweet, when they were
too
walking down the
sweet,
street,
yep.
and I'd be like, yo. And it was just like that little thing. It means nothing, but it's like, and now like that camaraderie is like,
Oh,
that's
yeah,
a big
big
part of
time.
being a wrestling fan, because not everybody
Huge,
gets it and not everybody likes it.
huge.
And a lot of people make fun of it still. And like, it's very odd how like wrestling fans all of a sudden, and not everybody, obviously, I'm not talking in generalizations, but like, it's just weird to me how we have such a niche thing that we all like, but yet we're so willing to just argue with each other about it.
Yeah,
And it's
yeah.
like, I don't get it. I don't get it.
Y
Like,
yeah, yeah, I've tried to remind some fans too that I see online that are just native all the time, and I tried to remind them what it was like when we were mentioned earlier, when, WWE was having that stale run and
mhm,
there was no competition. I mean, I think people forget how, at times, boring it was, and we don't wanna ever lose that. I mean, we
yeah,
don't wanna lose this feeling right here in 2025 of having all these great options, all these talents being able to have options to go work other places, have new feuds, new creative, be able to feed their families in a different way. I
mm.
mean, yeah, yeah.
It's just so weird. And like, you know, I think about myself like when I was a kid, right? Like, so when I
Mhm,
was young and getting into my teenage years and really loving wrestling and really being like just captivated by it and wanting to learn as much as I could, I think about, what if I had social media then? And I was a 12, 13-year-old kid, very impressionable, I see things and I buy into it more, because you're a kid,
mhm,
you know?
right.
And what if I went on to a Twitter? when I was 12 or 13 years old, and I really loved the fact that Jey Uso won the Royal Rumble. He's
Mhm.
my guy. I love him.
Yep.
I'm pumped. He won the Rumble. Hell yeah. And then I go on Twitter, and the first 100 things I see
Match.
are jerks saying that Jey
Mhm.
Uso is a hack and didn't
Yep.
deserve to win it. He's bad in the ring. Oh, he's just an entrance. He's just a yeet. That's all it is. Whether you feel that way or not, that is your opinion. You're entitled to that opinion. But I
Mhm.
think about like how I would have taken that if I was a 12-year-old. Would I have sat there and go, oh, maybe I'm wrong? Maybe I am. Maybe I don't get it. Maybe I shouldn't like Jey Uso as much as I like Jey. You know what I mean? And I think about like
Mhm.
things like that too. Like,
Sure.
and it's
Very true.
it's just things like that. And it's like just this notion of like having to ruin people's good times.
Yep.
I just don't get it, man. It's totally, there's a lot of things in this life, Tanner, that I don't like. But you know what I do to the things I don't like? Don't talk about them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, I
Don't
saw,
acknowledge them.
yeah, I saw a movie last week that I didn't like. I'm not going to go on the internet and write a
And talk about that.
140 character tweet telling me how much that movie sucked and
Yep.
how the director deserves to not have a job or things like
Yeah.
that. I'm just not going to talk about it because I thought the movie
Yeah.
sucked.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
and again, that's social media in general. It's kind of given
It is.
everybody. Social media has kind of given and look at you and I use social media. We use social media to promote our stuff and to,
Yes.
we use it as a filter for what we do. Like I'm very much a social media guy. Obviously, if you're in media or talking about wrestling, you kind of have to be. Like
Mhm.
it's part of my everyday, obviously. But it's just kind of like, I don't know, man. I don't know.
Yep.
It kind of at one point it gave everybody, I think everybody just started believing that, and I don't mean this negatively, but not everybody's opinion matters.
No, you're right. You're
It
right.
just listen,
100%.
like in the scheme of things, my opinion doesn't matter. I'm a
Mine either.
small potato
Mine
that
either.
lives near Boston. Like it doesn't matter.
Yep.
And I think everybody, like social media, just gave everybody this thought that, hey, every opinion I have, everything I think about, I need to get it out there because everybody needs to see this. And it's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah. No.
no,
No.
no, not everybody needs to at all, actually.
Nope. You're
And
right.
it's just
You
bizarre.
you are right. You are
Yeah.
right. But over the course of the interview so far, you talked about how you went to WrestleMania 14
Mhm.
in Boston, which was that the only mania you've ever been to?
For a long time, it was.
Okay.
I was lucky enough. Well, lucky enough, I say it ended up being one of the worst WrestleManias of all time. But I went to WrestleMania 32 in Dallas.
Yeah, I
Um,
remember that one.
so that was the first one that I like traveled for, like as like an older adult, I guess.
Mhm.
So I went to 14 because that was right in my neck of the woods. My dad brought me. I was a kid, so I didn't even drive. But that was the coronation of Stone Cold. I had to be there.
Yeah, what a great
Um,
one to be
that
at
was
too.
great. I mean, I have the picture of Kane and the Undertaker behind me here. That was
Yep.
the first time they fought. I had the dumpster match with the New Age Outlaws and Shane Sean Charlie and Mankind. Obviously, Austin and Michaels. It was a great WrestleMania. It's a very good
Mhm.
WrestleMania. So that was the first one. I went to 32 in Dallas, and then I went to 35 in New York. So those are the
Okay.
three that I've been to. So
Oh, 35. I just
Kofi
remember
Mania, man.
struggling yeah, Kofi Mania was the highlight of that. I
Yeah.
remember struggling to stay awake,
Uh,
though, because that was the one that was, like, 9 hours
so
long, and
Becky
ooh.
Lynch, I tell this to people. So Becky Lynch was walking down the aisle on a Sunday night.
Mhm.
Was walking down the aisle at 12:21 a.m. Walking down the aisle, 12:21
Oh, yep,
a.m. And I was like, "What are
yep,
we doing, man?
yep,
What are we doing?" Like, and look, they've gone to two nights. Um, I like the two nights for
yep,
Mania. I know Pluggo, my co-host, does not. He prefers the 1 day extravaganza, which I'm fine with. If you're
yep.
gonna do the 1 day extravaganza, this shit can start at like 4 p.m. You
Yeah,
can start
right,
it
no,
earlier.
started really early, yeah,
Yeah, you can
yep,
do that. But I
yep.
prefer the two nights now. I'm not one of these people that I don't need. I know SummerSlam's going to be two nights this year. I
Yeah, I'm not
wouldn't
big
doubt
on
it if
that.
the Royal Rumble is two nights starting
I
next
think the
year.
Rumble makes sense.
That
I
makes
think that
sense.
one makes sense.
I agree. I
I'm
agree.
good
But
with that and Mania, but the rest going 2 nights, I'm like,
I
the
agree.
I know they're selling out everywhere right now, and no
Yeah,
matter the price, I get it, but I'm afraid eventually that's not always gonna be the case.
I agree.
So,
I agree. And
they
that's
need
what
to be careful there.
Yeah, and I'm right with you. Like I'm one of those people that it's like, hey man, Wrestle Kingdom's been two nights for a while. Like
Yep.
your big event of the year, two nights. I'm all for
Sure.
that, man. I'm good with
Sure.
it.
Yep.
I don't need 4 or 5 events a year being two nights
No.
just because you want
No.
and like I'm very happy that WWE is succeeding. I'm very happy that it's hotter than ever. But
Mhm.
one of the things that I don't like, and this is just like the human side of me, but like whenever they talk about, oh, it was our largest gate ever and
Oh,
stuff like
yeah,
that, like
yeah,
I don't
yeah.
care about that. That
No,
has
I don't
nothing
either.
like I'm like, ooh, let's celebrate that you're overcharging everybody for ticket prices and get it like that to me is not like they're gonna brag about it because it's a milestone for them. Fine. It makes them look good from a
Business, yeah.
business, shareholders, business, fine.
Mhm,
I get that. But to me, even as a diehard fan who goes to do these shows to cover them for media, like I
mhm,
do this as a job sometimes, you know what I mean? Like
mhm.
even me, I'm like, yeah, I don't like you, whatever. I see some fans get jacked up about that too. I'm like, well, what does that have to do with anything? That just tells you that they're selling more tickets than ever at the most expensive they've ever sold like that.
Yep.
And you start doing 2 nights for each of these shows, that's only going to lean more into that. You're going to force
Mhm.
people. Are people going to go to WrestleMania weekend and only buy tickets for one night? No,
Right,
you're
right,
not going to do that.
right.
So you're only really like forcing people's hands almost,
Mhm.
and I just feel
Oh, yeah.
like it's the one side of it where like I'm pumped that I'm pumped because like I said, I do think it's as good as it's been in the last 10, 15 years.
Yep.
I'm excited. I'm glad people are like loving wrestling again. And I'm glad that it feels that way. But it's also like, I don't know, there's certain sides of it that I'm like, is that something we should be celebrating?
Yeah, I agree.
You
I
know?
agree. I
But
agree. Well,
yeah.
and it's interesting, you look at Mania this year, they're struggling a little bit to sell the tickets. Now, some of it's just the Vegas market, but
Mhm.
they've outpriced themselves quite a bit for Mania this year, and it's like maybe that'll be a wake-up call a little bit to them for next year's Mania, which I just saw come across my phone. Sounds like it's gonna be New Orleans
New Orleans,
for
that's what it
next year.
seems like. That'll be fun.
So, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and I agree with you. Like Vegas is tough anyway, right?
Yeah, it
'Cause
is.
Vegas,
It's
yeah, not only are you gonna have to pay extraordinarily high price tickets to go to WrestleMania because it's WrestleMania, you're not finding anywhere cheap to stay in Vegas. You're just
no,
not.
nope,
Unless you're
nope.
staying way, way, way outside of the strip, where if you're way, way, way outside of the strip, you're not going to have immediate access to the shop. You're not going to have WWE World. All the
Yeah.
independent stuff that's going to be happening is all going to be in downtown. Like you're going to want to stay close to that so you can see as much wrestling as you want to see.
Mhm,
And you are
mhm.
not, you could go to the dingiest, dirtiest, it could be bed bugs in the place you stay, and you are paying ridiculous
Yep,
amounts of money because it's Las
yep.
Vegas. So you add that, plus the flights into Vegas are never cheap, no matter where you're coming from, except maybe LA, because it's 40 minutes. Besides
Right.
that, expensive as hell to
Mhm.
get to Vegas, expensive as hell to stay in Vegas. And then when you're there, you have to eat, you have to drink. You're probably going to want to take in some of what Vegas has to offer as Vegas.
Yep. Yeah, might do a little
Especially
gambling.
if you've never been there before and that's your first time
Oh,
going to Las
sure.
Vegas, you're going to want to experience
Absolutely.
Vegas outside of the wrestling. That's not cheap.
Nope.
Like you're talking about like that, you're spending a lot of money, a
Yeah.
lot of
Oh, yeah.
money.
Oh, yeah.
And AEW's run into this problem with Double or Nothing,
100%.
which
I'm
is why I
hoping,
think
I'm
they need
fingers
to move off
crossed
that.
that they
Yes,
move it this year.
I think they
Fingers crossed.
need to. I think they need
Yeah.
to because, they're running into the same issue because Vegas
O
is,
oversaturation of a market. I
yes,
mean,
yes. And that's what
yeah,
it is, man. And it's not a cheap
happens.
market by any means.
No.
And
No.
like, you know, so
Nope.
we'll see. I mean, maybe it will be a wake up call to WWE. I'm not sure. I feel like right now
Yeah.
they're just at a level that they're just
They're
doing whatever they
printing
can.
money. They're
Yeah,
printing money
they're
right now,
literally
whatever they do.
exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what they're doing. So
Yeah.
we'll see. But at the same time, I do think that is something, you know, I do think like AEW is in a different scenario, right? So like
Oh,
WWE,
100%.
WWE is still selling out everywhere they go. So they
Yep.
don't have to change a damn thing because it's not
No.
AEW over the last 2 years. Their ticket sales are not good. And
Nope.
they're not good
Nope.
because when they were good, they started overpricing themselves and raising the prices because they were selling out. And now it's not working. And now, even though they're lowering prices and they're trying to go to smaller venues and get
Right.
back to where they were, they still need to win people back.
Oh, yeah. It's still an
Like,
uphill climb now. Yeah.
yeah. And that's
Yeah.
like, Grand Slam is happening this weekend, or like, Grand Slam's happening, and they wanted to go to a 50,000 seat stadium.
Yeah.
and they didn't sell any tickets, so they had to move it to a 13,000 seat arena. And the ticket sales were still so bad, they were giving 2-for-1 tickets away.
Yep.
That's not good.
Not good at all.
And like the show's going to be great. The card looks great. The show
yeah.
should be really, really good.
Yeah.
And like,
yeah.
you know, but like, that's not good, man. That's not good. And it's like, how do we get back to
Yeah,
affordable?
that's a question.
Yeah.
That's a question I wanted to bring to you because I think there's a lot of people that have cooled off from AEW, and I get it. I get it. They're definitely not as hot right now as they were 21, 22, even before those years. But I think they've been putting on some good shows the last
Mhm.
2 months,
Yep.
especially the last few weeks. I think they're starting to find their groove again. But from a pro wrestling fan and a guy who covers pro wrestling like you do, what do you think they need to do to restore the feeling? I hate saying that, but I don't know how else to put it.
I think they need to. All right. So this is kind of all right. I think them going back to smaller arenas is a big deal.
Yep.
Even though there's not as many people in there, a smaller arena can feel and sound even louder than bigger places sometimes.
Yeah, you want it to become a hot crowd on TV.
Exactly. I just feel like they need to get back to wrestling to me, and I feel like this about everything, honestly, but wrestling to me should be something that everybody can go to.
Yep.
You shouldn't have to make a certain amount of money. You shouldn't
Mm-hmm.
have to, wrestling should be something that everybody, no matter where you are in the totem pole of anything, you should be able to go to a wrestling show if you want to go to a wrestling show. And I feel like AEW lost that a little bit. I feel like when they first started, they were getting the fans that, to me, it felt like when AEW first started, they wanted the fans that weren't watching WWE or the fans that were sick and tired of WWE and wanted something different. And that's how it worked. And then a few years into it, it just felt like they were just trying to be WWE.
Yep.
And I think that was the problem. And now I feel like there's been ups and downs where they'll go on a run, like you said, and we said, they're on a good run right now. I think they're on a good run right now, but we've seen them go on good runs before, and then they'll be on a really bad run for a while. Yep. So I feel like from like I feel like they do need to lower their ticket prices and make it more affordable for the everyday person. WWE, like we said, WWE's selling out. They're having the price, and it's not. It's working for them. So let them be them. Right. Let them do that. All right. Right. You focus about selling out your arenas, and selling out your arenas might mean letting the everyday Joe buy a $20 ticket. Buy a $20 ticket to the friggin' show.
Well, and I would think as a business, you want that. You want to grab that. There's a lot of families that probably would love to go to a WWE event, but with their ticket prices being at the value they are right now, that's probably really hard for a family of 4 or 5. If AEW could price themselves in a market to where that family could go, they might go have a great time. You might have fans for life now.
100%.
I mean,
100%.
Take advantage of that.
Yeah, 100%. And then I think as far as the product like that we watch on the television show, they just need to be more consistent with their booking. And like to me, like they go on really good stretches where it's like, oh man, I'm really digging this. This is really good. And then all of a sudden there's nothing, and it's like, okay, like, you have to be just more consistent with what you're doing. And then as far as a business goes, I mean, I think the two things that AEW could really work on and get better at is merchandise and advertising.
Yep.
And I think advertising is huge, man. Like I live in the Boston area. If WWE is coming for a Raw, a SmackDown, or anything, they have wrestlers doing interviews on every major local radio show for a week and a half before. Just 10, 15-minute interview, promoting the show, giving away a pair of free tickets to the Raw on the, I don't see that with AEW.
No.
When AEW is coming to Boston or New Hampshire or something like that in my area, I don't hear radio commercials for AEW Dynamite. I don't see a commercial on my television screen for AEW coming to Manchester, New Hampshire. Like that, to me, that's easy. That is easy
101.
101. You're telling me that if you're the PR guy for AEW and you call up one of the major radio stations in any city and you go, "Hey man, we have a Dynamite coming in 2 weeks. We want you to interview Hangman Adam Page." That radio station's not going to say no.
No, right.
They're not. I've worked in radio too. They're not going to say no.
Yep.
So why are you not doing that?
Yeah. And I
It's
know they've
crazy.
done it in the past because one of my co-hosts on the Kicking Out podcast, Paul, he used to work for a radio station in the town I grew up in, and when AEW was coming to Indianapolis, they did this from in 2019, 21, and even 22.
Mm.
They would call Paul, ask him if he wanted tickets to give away on the radio, and they would let him have an opportunity to interview an AEW wrestler.
Mhm.
But the last few years, when they'd come, his phone wasn't ringing.
Mhm.
So he would almost have to reach out to them.
Yeah,
Sometimes he'd get a response, sometimes he wouldn't. Shouldn't be the case. Like you
I
said,
agree.
they should be hitting up all the radio stations, local TV markets. It's not hard. It's not hard at all.
It's not.
And merchandise, I will say I went to an AEW show in December, in early December at Fisher's. Their merchandise was better than the one I had been to earlier in 2024. But compared to WWE, it's night and day.
Not even close, man. It's not even close.
Not
And
even close.
again, they obviously don't have the scale of WWE,
Right.
but like
Right.
still, like I just feel like I've been to a handful of Dynamites in the Boston area, and the merch table is like half a table.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a very small merch table. There's maybe 10 shirts if you're lucky, and
Yep.
things of that nature. And I'm just like, how do you not have a shirt for every, like, I get it, it costs money to make this stuff, but like, how do you not have a shirt for every wrestler in your company?
Or at
Or every
least go
wrestler that's at
online.
least on TV on your company?
Yeah, or at least go online and they got the metrics on shopaw.com. You can see the top selling for weekly, monthly, yearly. Look at some of that.
Yeah.
See who's selling good merch and make sure you have that guy or gal's merch out there.
Yeah.
One of the biggest the biggest whiff, I will say, with AEW merchandise. Now it doesn't matter because he's in WWE and they're doing what AEW should have done. How AEW never had Penta masks for sale blows my mind.
Yep. Yeah.
It was just easy money left on the table. And
It's
WWE did it
crazy.
the night of his debut.
Yeah.
They had
Yeah.
selling
They
his
were like,
masks.
yeah. And guess what? Like, and again, like, I think Penta is a perfect example
Mhm.
of kind of, I don't know. I'm not going to think of the proper word, but I think Penta is the perfect example of what AEW could have done.
Could have.
And I get it. Like, obviously, he was part of a tag team in AEW, and I'm assuming at one point, once Rey Fenix is free, he will be in a tag team in WWE. But they've already built Penta up enough in a month. In a month, they have built Penta up enough that he is a single star immediately.
Yep.
When in AEW did you ever hear Penta talk like he's talked in WWE?
No, never.
Why?
I didn't. And I don't want this to sound bad.
Oh, I know what you're going to say.
I didn't know he could.
English. Yeah.
I didn't think he could to the level he did on his
Exactly.
Raw debut. I was blown away.
Yeah.
I'm like, good for you, man.
Yep. And I thought the same thing. And I know it sounds bad, but I was under the impression that they didn't have him talk because he couldn't talk great English. That was my impression of it.
Mine
was,
too.
oh, maybe there's a language barrier, which is fine.
Yep.
I was like, maybe there's a language barrier, so that's why he doesn't talk. You hear him cut that promo after Raw. He goes like, he talked for almost like 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And he's talking pretty damn good. Like, and I'm like, okay, I got the privilege of interviewing him at the junket at the Royal Rumble. Why wasn't this guy talking? It makes no sense. It makes no sense. And like, yeah, it's things like that. It's things like that.
Yep.
And again, hopefully these are learning scenarios. Right. You know, we just saw somebody else that, and I also think that AEW has kind of shot themselves in the foot sometimes. Like, I think the stuff that's going on with Rey Fenix does not put AEW in a good light. I think that makes them look bad. Right. I think the stuff that happened with Ricky Starks makes AEW look bad to the general wrestling fan.
Sure.
It looks petty. It looks like just a bunch of BS, right?
Sure.
The guy doesn't want to be there. Fine. But you're not using him. That's my thing. Like, that's my thing. It's like, I understand how contracts work. I get it. It is well within your right to do what you did with Ricky Starks and to do with what you're doing with Rey Fenix. It is well within your right. At the same time, if you know they're not going to be there, fine. There's been plenty of people on both sides of the coin that have not wanted to be there. CM Punk didn't want to be in WWE anymore before he quit.
Right.
Gail Kim exited herself out of a battle royal and quit because she didn't want to be there anymore. That has happened before. That is not new.
Jeff Hardy.
Yeah, Jeff Hardy. That is not new.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing with AEW that sticks out to me is not only do these people not want to be there anymore, but you're purposefully going out of your way to not use them.
Right.
Like Ricky Starks was very vocal about how he didn't like his place in the company.
Right.
However you feel about that, your opinion, whatever.
Yep.
But he was very vocal that he didn't like his place in the company. He's allowed to feel that way.
Yep.
He's allowed to vocalize that too.
Right.
But when then you almost go a year without using him when he's healthy, ready to go, telling people publicly he wants to still wrestle he wants to wrestle, he wants to be on TV, and you're not using him, that's petty bullshit.
That is. It would be different if he's not wanting to do anything you're pitching to him, which, I just see what I read. Maybe some of the other talent that were released in WWE, maybe that from AEW this week, maybe that played into that.
Yeah.
But from everything I read with Ricky, was he happy? No, but he was still willing to be a team player.
Yeah, he was still willing to go out there and wrestle because he wanted to wrestle.
Have him put other people over. There's nothing wrong with that.
No. And
use
it's just
him to
like,
have him take some L's.
Yeah. And I think when it gets to that point, when you're just, that to me, I think puts AEW in a bad light.
Yep, I agree.
And I think he's gotten a lot better at it recently, but I think social media and Tony Khan has shot himself in the foot more times than not. He's been a lot better lately. Like he's just very more chill on there, which I think is a good thing. And at the end of the day, I like Tony Khan. I'm a very strong proponent of Tony Khan. He's one of us.
Yeah,
he's one of us.
Yeah.
And, he's a wrestling fan. Now, granted, like he obviously grew up in a family that allowed him to, and then he has a lot of money. So he's not like one of us in that way.
A lot of money and assets.
Yeah, but he's like one of us. And like he grew up a diehard wrestling fan. He loved Ring of Honor. He loved wrestling his whole life. And he just had the luxury of being in a situation where he could create his own wrestling company. Like I want him to succeed. But I do think I do think they're in a lot better spot now. I feel like things are in more, at least we don't hear as much chaos happening. It feels like things might be more under control now, which I hope is true. But I feel like it was kind of that stuff. Like, I feel like, the people that are anti-AEW on the IWC, the people like the majority of the stuff they complain about, it's not the in-ring. It's not the stuff we're seeing on the, the stuff that they would be able to really hone in and really get under AEW fans' nerves it was that extra stuff. It was Tony Khan acting like an idiot on Twitter. It was, you make, the Ricky Starks, the Ray Phoenix. Like very rarely is it the stuff we're watching on the wrestling show. It's usually the other stuff that AEW kind of shot themselves with a little bit.
Right.
So it feels like that, at least over the last couple months, we haven't heard any, at least I can't remember over the last, 3-4 months or so hearing, there was a fight backstage between this person or that. We were hearing that all the time. All the time. There were fights. People were sent home. There was this, there was that. It was like, it was the Wild Wild West back there. Like, what the hell's going on?
Yeah. Well, and it even got to the point, like, as a fan, I was getting frustrated. Like, even if that is happening, keep it under wraps somehow.
Yeah.
Like, how is this always leaking out, know? Because I guarantee you, WWE over the years has had, they've had fights and stuff, but do you hear about it? Not very often.
Not very often.
Because they keep it in-house.
Yeah.
I mean, it just,
Yeah, and stuff like that. But again, like I said, it feels like they've righted the ship there for now. Obviously, they have a ways to go, but they've righted the ship for now and things like that. And I think they need to build up some more stars.
Yes.
I look at what they're doing with Harley Cameron right now, and I go, that to me is as good as a build of somebody who potentially could be a new star for them than I think they've done since when? Like, it's just like organically this woman, and she's earned it. She's earned it because they gave her a bunch of bullshit at the beginning, and she was always the most entertaining. Whenever she was on the screen, she was always the most entertaining person. She reminds me of Chelsea Green. I look at her and Chelsea Green as you know, I know Chelsea Green's been wrestling for a lot longer. I'm not really talking
Sure.
about that side of it. But when Chelsea Green first went back to WWE, they were giving her some bullshit stuff. And
Mhm.
whenever she was on the screen, she said, I am gonna be the thing that people remember
Yep.
from this
I'm gonna
segment.
make the most of this. I'm gonna make the
Correct.
most of this, what they're giving me. Yep.
100%. And she did. And then look where Chelsea Green is now.
Yep.
She's the first ever
100%. Yep.
women's United States champion. She's
Yep.
has these spots. People love her. They adore her. She's a huge, even though she's a heel, people love her as they should because she's great. I look at
Yep.
Harley Cameron and I see the same exact thing, man. They
Yep.
gave her, she was with the QT group for a while. She was with Soraya for a little bit, kind of this hodgepodge crap. But whenever she was on the screen, she was the most entertaining part of what we were seeing. And
Mhm.
then she started showing more personality and she started singing and she started doing the rapping and things of, and it built and it built and it built and it built. And now, you know, that thing on Dynamite this week where she was doing the rap song and then she stopped it halfway through and she cuts that heartfelt promo. I bought into every single word that she was saying. And I want her
Mhm.
to beat Mercedes. And I'm a Mercedes guy.
I know you are.
She's
Yep.
from Boston. I'm a Mercedes guy through and through. And I want her to win that Grand
Yep.
Slam. I don't think she will, but they have a chance. They can really make her, man. They
Oh, they
can
could
really
strap
make
a
her.
rocket to her.
They
Mhm.
could make her if they do that.
Mhm.
I don't
Mhm.
know if they will, because that would be a ballsy decision to do. But they have an opportunity, man, where if they pulled that trigger, especially in her home country, in Australia, they have a chance to legitimately make a brand new star in their company. And I feel like AEW was kind of built off that.
Sure.
And I feel
Sure.
like they haven't done a lot of that lately. And by lately, I mean like a while now.
Yeah, it's probably been since Swerve,
I would think. I
you
would
know?
think, yeah.
Yeah.
And I feel like I said, like I view that and I go, okay, you know, they did the thing with like, and you know, you look at other things, right? Like, so like they built up Private Party. Hey, you know, they built that angle. Hey, yeah, you've been here for 5 years, you haven't won the titles, all this stuff. You build it up. First of all, this should have went on for 2 months before they won the titles, but you build it up, you do
Mhm.
it real quick, whatever. They have that moment, they win the titles, the crowd is going, everyone's happy for them. Everyone's thrilled. The crowd is pumped, and then they didn't do
It was a
anything.
waste. Waste.
Anything. What's Daniel
Yep.
Garcia doing with the TNT title right now?
Nothing.
Okay.
Nothing.
There's another one. Another young, homegrown guy that you could build to be. He's still super young, so he's got plenty of time.
Right.
But like, that's a homegrown, young
Mhm.
star that the fans are behind, that you built to this moment to him to beat Jack Perry for that title. The crowd was very happy with it. And then he's basically been sitting on the sidelines since.
Yep.
Why?
I I wish I had an answer for you.
Like
Things like
those,
that just drive me crazy.
yeah, like those are the things that I talk about. Like when I'm talking about the product that we watch,
Mhm.
they need to do better about building people. Like Daniel Garcia shouldn't, okay, yes, you built to him winning that title. That him winning the title is not the end of the story.
Right. Keep it going.
And I feel like AEW has that thing
Yep.
sometimes where they go, oh, well, them winning the title is the end of that story.
Right.
And it's like, no, it's not. Like them winning the title is the culmination of the story. And now you have to still build them
Yep. Now it's
as
a
the
new chapter.
champions.
Yep.
Now we're on to the second level of the
Yep.
story. Yeah,
Yep.
chapter. That's a good way to put it. The second chapter of the story. Like, do you think that Shawn Michaels became who he was because he won the title at WrestleMania 12?
Nope.
That was the culmination of him getting to that moment of breaking through and winning the world title for the first time. He still needed to do everything he needed to do after that to be considered one of the best of all time.
Yep.
Like, and I feel like AEW, not with everybody, but I feel like AEW has this problem where they view them winning the titles as like the end of this whole thing. And it's like, no, dude, like, yes, we were
Yep.
waiting for Private Party to win those titles, but then we want to see Private Party be strong champions.
Yeah. Yeah. Use your champions on TV.
Yeah.
I
Like
mean,
we saw
they're
the
your
trios
champion.
titles. The trios titles were defended on Dynamite this week for the first time since
Finally.
November.
Finally.
Since
God.
November.
Yep.
That is inexcusable.
Yep. They
Like
got
it's things like
and
that.
And don't even get me started about the Continental Championship. I like to
Yeah,
see 2, but that championship is a waste of time.
it is. And that's being
Yeah.
defended at Grand Slam, which is fine.
Yep.
That match should be very good with him and Buddy
Yeah.
Matthews. It should
Oh,
be
it'd be really
excellent, to
good.
be honest with you.
Mhm.
But like again, yeah, what does that title mean? Doesn't mean
Nothing.
anything.
Nothing.
It's just yeah,
Yep.
and again, in the scheme of things, like they are little things, kind of. But when you see them over and over and over and over again, it's like come on, like
Well, and not
you're
only
right.
are they little things, but it's things they should be able to button up easily. That's
Yeah,
why we're so loud about it and complain about it over and over again because it's things we can see. All the fans are complaining about it. That's something as a promoter you should be able to fix pretty easily with
I
little
agree.
effort.
I agree.
But
Yeah, I fully agree.
but I got a few other quick questions for you before we wrap up, and this is just going back to your fandom.
Mm,
Um, You just went to a Rumble. You've been to
mhm.
3 Manias. What are some pro wrestling events and venues on your pro wrestling fan bucket list that you want to get to before it's
Oh
all said and
boy.
done?
Um, I mean, I would like to go see. Okay, so I luckily I've been able to travel a decent amount for wrestling.
Mhm.
I got to go to that first All In Chicago before they were AEW. I was there as well.
Nice.
I would like to see a WWE show in Chicago,
Mhm,
like a proper.
mhm.
Um, I luckily enough I got to see one wrestling event at Madison Square Garden as well, which was a
Very
big deal
nice.
for me. So
Mhm.
I got to do that. Um, as far as like, see, this is where my fandom comes in because before I started covering it for media and stuff like that, like if they were coming around, I was going. You know
Right.
what I mean? So like I've had the luxury of going to um a SummerSlam before. I've had the luxury of a
Mhm,
Mania. This was my second Rumble. Um, I've been to a Money in the Bank because they did one in Boston. Like,
mhm.
so I've had the luxury of doing that. I would like to go to a Wrestle Kingdom.
That'd be cool.
Wrestle King. Now, obviously, that would be you know, I'd have to plan for that
Right.
well in
Right.
advance. But like a Wrestle Kingdom at the Tokyo Dome, that would be cool. That's a historic venue and a historic event. That would be something high up on my list. Um, as far as like, I mean, Mania in Vegas would be cool. Mania in Vegas would be cool. Um, venues, I'm trying to think. Like, I would want to go to almost like the dingy venues. You know what I mean? Like, I'd
Oh
like to
yeah,
go to the Forum, like the Forum in LA.
one that pops from my head is Cow Palace.
Yes, that's another one. Yep.
Yep.
Like, I would
Yep.
like to go to like the older, dingier
Mhm.
places like that. Like NXT, they came to the Lowell Memorial Auditorium not too long ago to do a live show. Um, and it was in December, and they were in Lowell Memorial Auditorium, even though that's a place that the main roster of WWE doesn't go anymore. That's a historic venue for WWE, like in its history. They used to do Raws
Mhm.
there. That was like the venue that WWE would go to before the Attitude Era, where they kind of got bigger. Um, so seeing them kind of go back there and like that's the stuff that I like. I like those
Yeah.
type of venues when you're in this small venue. It's very, it's the same way I view like music concerts. Like,
Oh
yeah,
yeah, if these
would I
walls could talk type places.
yeah, like, oh, would I
Yeah.
love to go see? I don't know any, but would I love to go see this band play at Fenway Park in front of 60,000 people? Yeah, but I would prefer to go see them at the House of Blues in front of 3 grand. You
Right.
know what I mean?
Right.
Like, I
Yeah.
would prefer that to me.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
kind of view it that way as well. So I think, yeah, like I think of the Forum in LA. I think the Cow Palace is a good one. I think of small little venues like that. Um, I really haven't been to any AEW pay-per-views
That's what I
besides
was
the
gonna ask you if
original
you've been that's what I was gonna ask you, yeah.
the original All In. So like I would love to go to like a Double or Not. I mean any of them, but a
Right.
Double or Nothing and All In. I know they're moving it to Texas this year, but All In,
Mhm.
like now that it's the big event or an All Out. Yeah, I really haven't been to any AEW pay-per-views.
Yeah.
I've only been to
I'm
like
right there. I'm right
Dynamites.
there with you. I'm right there
Yeah.
with you, and I get asked all the time, I'm like, "I don't have a good answer. I don't know why I haven't been to one, I just haven't
Yeah.
yet." But
Yeah. So I think those would be probably my answers there would be that.
yeah, yeah.
Um, but yeah, I would say that's probably it.
You're a big video game guy,
Sure am.
so you can only play 1 wrestling video game the rest of your
Ever?
life,
Oh God.
ever. What are we playing and why?
Mm, okay. Um, okay. So again, I'm gonna show my age. Um, for me, so I had levels of it. So like when I first started playing wrestling video games, it was on the Super Nintendo.
Mhm.
And it was like, I don't know if you remember these games or if you ever played them later on, but like it was WWF Raw and WWF Royal Rumble, and they were really
Mhm.
like, so those were great. And then you got to the N64 where you had like WCW versus NWO Revenge. You had No Mercy. You had WrestleMania 2000. I prefer WrestleMania 2000 to No Mercy. I know I'm weird that way, but I prefer that. But for me, SmackDown Here Comes the Pain, I think would be the
That's
one.
my number one.
I
That's
think
my number one.
Yeah, I think SmackDown Here Comes the Pain would be, if I only had to have one forever,
Yep.
I think it would be that. But with that being said, and this is not me being a shill, I actually think that WWE 2K25 has
It looks like it's gonna be a lot of fun.
it looks like it has the chance to kind of be the best one ever. Like
Mhm.
24 was really good.
Mhm.
I think they've really found their zone of making real good games. And
Mhm.
24 added like actual like story modes again and like cool,
Yes.
like regular, innovative, not just, oh, you're fighting matches and moving up rankings. It was like, no,
Mhm.
it was a ridiculous story, but it's still a story. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um,
Mhm.
I do think 2K25 has the chance to kind of cement itself as one of, if not the best ever. But if I'm picking one right now from what I have and what I've played in my life, it would be SmackDown Here Comes the Pain. I
Yeah.
think that whole row of those, I think it was what, three of them? Was there three of them there?
Yeah, you had, Know Your Role, Shut Your Mouth, and
Yeah.
then,
And then Here
um
Comes the Pain, right?
yeah. Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So I think that whole row of two or three games, like with that engine and how those games looked, I
They
thought
were
those were the
good.
best. I thought those were the
Oh,
best.
yeah.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
played so many hours in middle school of Here Comes the Pain,
Oh,
and
yeah.
like you said, the storyline modes, they were different depending on what character you played with, what
Hmm.
answers you chose, or what path you chose. So good.
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah. And I feel like last year, I felt like 2K24 kind of got back to that a little bit. And that was the stuff that I really missed in those games. Like, don't get me
Oh,
wrong, I
yeah.
love picking it up and just, playing or doing like other modes and things like that. But like, I want a story mode. I want a
Yep.
story mode where I either create my own guy or I'm picking somebody. And I want choices. I want decisions. I want the decisions to affect the career of my person. Like I want that. And I
Yep.
think they got away from that for a long time. And last year it felt like they kind of got back to it for the first time in a while. So I'm kind of hoping we kind of see that continue.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Me too. Few more here. You already said you're a big music guy. Favorite wrestling theme song of all time?
Mm, okay. Um,
You can throw out a couple. That's
yeah, I
fine.
will. I
No,
will.
yeah.
I think Evolution.
That's a good one.
That's a good one. And then and I'm not even a big Triple H guy. I'm not. But I'm more of a Triple H guy now than I was when I was a Triple H guy when he was wrestling, if that makes sense. I'm more of
Yeah,
a big time
sure.
Paul guy
Paul
now
Levesque. Yeah.
than I was when he was. And don't get me wrong, one of the all time, like no
Oh,
question.
he
Like
is, but
I'm not one of
I mean
those. But like he was
growing
never.
up for me, he was a heel most of the
Yeah,
time, and I just got tired of him because I was his reign of power for the
yeah.
most
And,
part.
and I just
So,
felt like for me, like as good as he is, as good as he was, one of the all time true greats. He was never my favorite guy.
right.
He was never my guy. So like I just but oh, can you hear me?
Yeah, I got you.
All right, good. My headphones kind of went out there, so I just want to make sure. But my 1-2 this on My Time from Triple
My
H.
Time was my favorite of his theme songs. Yep.
Yep, I think that is his best one.
Mhm.
So I that is up there for me. And then I'm as generic as it is, dude. When that glass shatters, man. When that glass shatters for Stone Cold, brother, there is nothing like it. There is
Yep.
nothing like it. I think that's as good as it gets. And then I think the Ministry of Darkness Undertaker theme as well.
Very underrated.
Yeah.
Very
Yeah.
underrated.
I would say those are probably, I would say My Time, Triple H. I really love Evolution though. I really
Yes.
love the Evolution theme. Anything with
Yep.
Motor, like the Motorhead songs that
Mhm.
all three of them are great.
Mhm.
But Evolution, if I had a Mount Rushmore, I guess,
Sure.
My
Sure.
Time, Evolution, Stone Cold, and then I would throw the Ministry of Darkness Undertaker in there because it's like heavy but demonic and
Yep.
evil, and
That fit that
yeah,
perfectly.
it's really good.
Yeah.
It's really
Yeah.
really good.
I
I
like
feel
those.
like now we're I feel like we're at an all time low. when it comes to themes, especially in
Yeah,
WWE. I feel like they're just
the Death
all of them
Rebel
are
stuff is just not
not good.
that, and that was one thing at the Rumble. There were so many people, I had to wait to see their name pop up because
Happened
I
last
couldn't
year
tell
too.
by the first few notes of the song,
Yeah,
I couldn't tell who
it,
it was.
it happened last year too. You could tell
Or
there's
like
like
Finn
delayed.
Balor gets new music at the
Yep,
Rumble, and I'm like, "Who the hell's this?"
yeah,
And
and
then finally
that
pops up, like, "Oh,
yep, and you could tell, you can hear the delayed
yep,
reactions because the music starts and not everyone is sure who the hell this is until you see
yep,
the name, and then you're like, "Oh, all right, yeah,
yep,
cool."
yep,
And it's like,
yep."
you know, who got the biggest pops at the Royal Rumble? It was the people, obviously the biggest stars, duh, but like it was the people that had, oh,
The
here's the
music.
buzzer. Immediately you know that song. You hear the
Yep.
CM Punk, you know it's CM Punk.
Mhm,
You hear
mhm,
the drum for Roman. It's Roman.
mhm.
Burn it down. John Cena. You know, yes, these are the biggest stars in the company, but they have the music right away. Joe Hendry, biggest pop, one of the biggest pops in the Rumble. Why?
Yep,
Because immediately you know the song.
yep,
Alexa Bliss, who had been gone for years, she comes back, immediately gets the biggest pop ever. Why? Because you heard the dun dun and
mhm,
everyone knew immediately that's Alexa Bliss's music, and then
yep.
everyone blacked out. You know what I mean?
It's part of the package of
Yeah,
being a big time superstar. It
yeah,
is. I mean, you gotta
yeah,
have good music.
yeah.
It
So I feel like,
just is.
I feel like WWE's music needs a little bit of tweaking, and we're coming off like the CFO stuff that they did, like that whole
Mhm,
era when you had Asuka and Shinsuke and the original Finn
mhm.
Balor music and all those music that those guys did, they were all bangers, man.
Yep,
They
yep,
were all bangers.
yep.
And now,
Yeah,
6, 7
Death
years
Rebels
later,
just
it's
doesn't
like,
hit for me. It's
nah,
just
man.
not
Like I
doesn't
look
hit.
at like Motor City Machine Guns, and I'm like, that's one of the best tag teams that's ever existed. And that might be a top 3 worst theme song I've ever
Yeah,
heard.
it's a very
So
generic
bad.
one, like you could create your own superstar,
Yeah. Brutal.
pick a
You know?
team. Yeah,
Yeah.
yep, yep.
I don't know.
Uh, um, and you're a Boston guy. You've said that multiple times in the interview, and I know you're a big Boston sports guy. So, who, in your opinion, is the Tom Brady of pro wrestling?
Probably Cena.
Good answer.
Okay. I was very much one of these people that was Cena sucks. Okay. That was me.
Yep.
All right. Now again, not that he's lived in Massachusetts for the last 30 years or whatever, but like he grew up in like where I sit right now, the town 5 minutes north of me is West Newbury, Massachusetts.
Okay.
So he is where he grew up. That is the town like next door. His parents
Mhm.
still live there. Like,
Very cool.
so he is a very local boy to me and to this area. Clearly, I do think his last match should be in Boston.
I do too.
That's where it should be. But anyway, but I would say Cena. I was actually thinking about this. I don't know if I was talking to anybody about it, but I was like, if I were to turn a question on you, like right
Mhm.
now, where it stands,
Mhm.
who do you think is the best WWE wrestler? Like not wrestler, maybe, but like who do you think is the top WWE guy of all time?
All time,
Because I'm
I
having a
st-
hard. Go ahead. Yeah, I want you to answer. Sorry.
I still think if you're talking everything, little in ring ability, charisma, being able to draw, I still think it's Stone Cold all time.
To me, it's him and Cena, and those are the only two options.
Yep. Yep.
You
I
know?
mean, it's the people you can ask on the street. You can ask 10 people on the street
Yeah.
to recognize that they will more than not will recognize those two guys.
Yeah. And to me, the reason why and again, this is coming from like not a big Cena guy,
Mhm.
the longevity.
Yes.
Stone Cold was I think Stone Cold was easily the most over anybody a top guy has ever been ever in the history of the company. I don't even think it's close. I don't even think it's close.
Yep.
However, when you look at Stone Cold's run, it's like 6 years.
Oh, it's baffling when you look at it, how short it was.
It's not a long time.
Yep.
And I know
Yep.
Cena hasn't been around the last handful of years, but Cena did it for 15
Oh, yeah. I mean, those 2
straight
guys
years.
carried the company on their backs. Um,
And
and,
Cena,
of course,
yeah. And Cena was
eh,
doing it in the time that we talked about where it was brutal.
pretty dry,
And,
pretty
and
dry.
like,
Yeah.
don't get me wrong, was Cena part of the problem sometimes?
Yeah.
Yes. Yes, he
Absolutely.
was.
Super Cena was.
Yes, he was. But at the same time, I can't take that away from him
No.
because he's not
No,
booking the show.
and
You
both
know?
guys were loyal to the company
Yeah.
too. I mean,
Yeah.
that's That goes a long way too.
Yeah. So I
Um,
mean, to me, even though Stone Cold out of the two, Stone Cold is easily my favorite out of the two. He's probably my 1A favorite of all time.
mhm, mhm.
If you're asking me when I look back at WWE, like who the Brady or the GOAT
Yeah, yeah,
is, I have a hard time picking against Cena now.
yeah,
I have a
yeah.
hard time.
I, I think, I mean, it's objective to anybody's opinion, but I think Stone Cold and Cena have to be in everybody's mix
Yeah,
of options. Have
yeah,
to be.
yeah. And I look at I know people are gonna still throw like WWE doesn't exist without Hulk Hogan.
I
That's
agree.
just a true
I agree.
statement.
Yep.
That's a true statement. He was MTV. Like, don't get me wrong, like that. Yes, I agree.
Pro wrestling isn't what it is today without Hulk Hogan.
No question. No questions asked. I would
I
never
will.
I,
That's
I
about the
would
nicest thing I'll say about the
yeah,
guy.
100%. And I would never debate that fact. And I would never
No.
be one of those people that denies that just because of how I feel about him personally, which
Right.
is not good.
Right.
Um, but to me, it's Austin and Cena, and it's between those two. And I think you can go either way, and I don't think you'd be wrong.
Mhm,
I don't think you'd be wrong. But
mhm.
I would lean towards Cena just because of the longevity of it. And yeah, I just think, yeah, he was a company guy through and through, man. Like
Yep.
Stone Cold left, he went home when
He
he
did.
didn't
He
like.
did take his ball and go
He
home.
went home when he didn't like he came back
Yeah,
and
it's
cooler
true.
heads prevailed and things like that. But like
It's
Cena
true.
stood there, he stayed there through all the crap. And
Yep.
yeah, man,
Yep.
I don't know. I have a hard time picking against John
Yep.
there.
Yeah, because look at all the other guys. I mean, your Rocks and your even Brock Lesnar's. Guys that were big time champions. They all left for long periods of time.
Hmm. Yep.
Cena didn't until late,
Yep.
late in his career.
Until
Even
late.
then, he would come back and do Mania every year,
Yeah.
or at least do a spot. Yeah, he
Yeah.
still put guys over. Had no problem. I mean, look at. I mean, I expect soon he's going to have a little more of a selfish run here in his last run. I
I
think that
agree.
starts at the Chamber. Hope
Hmm.
it starts at the Chamber. But look how many guys he's put over the last
Yeah.
5 years.
He lost to
So
Austin Theory
I
and
was thinking
Solo
about that the other
Sikoa.
day. I'm like Solo, I can still understand more, but Theory, yeah,
Yeah.
looking
He
back
lost to
on it, I'm
Theory at
like,
WrestleMania.
mm, yeah,
That's
yeah,
crazy
yeah.
when you think about it. And I
Oh,
do
it
think
is.
that I do, I was talking about this the other night. I do an NXT watch along on my channel, and we were talking about it because him and Grayson Waller showed up on there because they're in the title
Hmm.
match on Saturday. And I said, Austin Theory, I feel like he still has the Vince stink on him.
Yep, he was one of Vince's guys.
He was, and they did the on-screen stuff with him and all
Yep,
that stuff. And I feel like that, not saying that fans are wrong for feeling that way,
yep.
but I feel like people are kind of they're not they're not viewing him fairly.
Yeah, it's
If
not
that
his.
makes
It's not
sense.
really his fault. I mean,
No. And when you look at him, right, he's still super young, really good in
hmm,
the ring, like crazy
hmm,
good in the ring. He can cut a good promo. He's a good looking guy. Like he has everything you want in a top star in the company. But I feel like that Vince stuff just did so much damage to
yep,
him that he can't get that stink off him.
yep.
And
That's a
it's
very
just
good
kind
way to
of
look at it.
like, like I have no problem if people want to boo Austin Theory because he's a bad guy or you're annoyed by his character, but I feel like it's not that type of booing he gets. He gets the, oh, we don't even want to see you out here stuff still. And
Yeah,
I'm like,
yeah.
I don't know if he really deserves
Yeah, he
that.
gets the big time go away heat.
Yeah, like,
Big
but
time.
that's a side topic. But yeah, like you said, the United States Open Challenge that Cena did, man.
Oh, it was
That was
awesome.
the best. That was the
Hmm.
best. He was fighting
Hmm.
guys that he would never normally fight. He was actually having like really good matches, like showing his wrestling ability. He was really shutting a lot of people up, including me.
Hmm. Hmm.
Uh, 5 moves of doom, and that's all he does. Well, he was like, okay, watch me go out here and have bangers with Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn and
Yes.
Cesaro and all these guys, and just week after week, Seth
Yep.
Rollins, like all of them.
Hmm.
And it was great. And that was the
Yep.
best part of the show for
It
like
was
a
easily
year. For a year.
elevated a mid card title. I
No
mean,
question.
just as important, if not during that time, more important
Because it
than
was
the
on
than the
Cena.
big title.
Yeah, because
Hmm.
it was on Cena. And he was doing
Hmm.
that every Monday. You didn't know who he was going to be fighting. And you always were like, oh, is it going to be a surprise? They're going to bring somebody up from NXT or is it going to be someone there? And he was just having these banger matches. He was even, dude, he let Kevin Owens beat him in his debut.
Oh,
And
amazing.
that was in like the height of still when Cena was
Oh,
Cena.
yeah, I remember being shocked watching that.
Yeah.
Just in disbelief. Yep.
Yeah. Like, again, like when you talk about a company guy,
Yep.
I don't think there's been a better company guy than John Cena.
Yep. One more question for you. What is your biggest what if in the history of professional wrestling?
Mm.
It could be a wrestler, it could be a storyline, it could be a decision or an indecision a company made.
Oh boy.
But yeah, one of those decisions to where like if this domino fell or didn't fall, a lot could be different.
Yeah. Oh man, that's a good one. Let me think. Um, I always think about what if, and it's there's so much lore to it in the wrestling
Mhm.
history that it is what it is. But I almost think about what would have happened if we didn't have the Montreal Screwjob.
Yeah. No. Yeah.
Because I can make an argument, and you can make the argument, but like I feel like going to WCW ruined Bret Hart's career.
Mhm.
Not saying that everything he did there was bad, because it
Mhm.
wasn't. But like obviously he ended up getting injured in WCW, and we all know that story. And like that obviously led to other health things, which is why he couldn't wrestle anymore. I feel like I don't know. I feel like Bret Hart was on like at that time he was doing some really cool stuff where he was like the heel in America, but the hero in Canada. And they were just doing these things. And I think about like as much as that kind of built into the history and the lore of wrestling, I think about like, what if Vince and him could have had one last conversation and figured something out? And like, what if Bret Hart was in WWF the whole time the Attitude Era was there? Would, when you think about it, and again, I don't want to turn it into something that it's not, but like, would Owen Hart have ever gone back to being the Blue Blazer?
Mhm. Mhm.
Would the British Bull, like, would the Hart Foundation have been a staple of the Attitude Era throughout its whole time? You know,
Would we even have got the attitude era that we got? Because would we ever got the Mr. McMahon character or Stone Cold McMahon
exactly,
rivalry if Brett
exactly,
resigns?
exactly. So it's kind of one of those what ifs where like
It
so
could go
much
either
stuff.
way. Yeah.
Yeah, because again, like the Mr. McMahon character, the first time we saw him on screen as Mr. McMahon was him addressing the Bret Hart situation at the Montreal Screwjob. So
Yep.
maybe if that doesn't happen, we never get that. I don't know.
Right.
But
Right.
I think about it I think about it more from the lens of the Bret
The
Hart
other way.
side of
Yeah.
it, because he
Mhm.
had plenty more years to give
He did.
in this wrestling business than what he
He did.
got.
He did.
And that's coming from something like he was one of my first favorites. So
Yep.
like I have an affinity for that man.
Sure. Sure.
Um, Other than that, I would Daniel Bryan having to retire
Yeah.
is a big one for me as well, because he was WrestleMania 30 happened to me in my lifetime. That still, I think, is the biggest WrestleMania moment for me. Like not me personally, but like for the whole Yes Movement thing, man. That was something that was like the biggest thing I think I remember. Like,
Mhm.
and they tried so many times to say, no, we're not doing this. And the crowd
Yep.
was just like, you are.
Yeah.
Like,
We're
you're
gonna
doing it.
hijack you.
Yeah, like we
Mhm.
are going to ruin this whole thing until you give us what we want.
Yep.
And, you know, then he wins the title. He has two great matches at WrestleMania. That match with Triple H to start the show does not get remembered as much as it should. That match
Very
is
good point.
excellent. And then he wins the belt, and it's in New Orleans, and everyone's losing their minds. And then he fights Kane for some reason. He fights Kane as his first challenger, and then he just kind of got hurt, came back
Yeah.
for a little bit, got hurt, and then it was just he had to retire, and he missed all that
Mhm.
time. And I'm just thinking, like, if he didn't, where is he? Like, I look at that and I go, that guy had potential to be the biggest face in the company for a decade.
Mhm.
Still now, I feel like he probably would have. I
Yeah.
mean, obviously barring injuries and things we can't control or think about, but like I feel like that guy he was the top guy, but he was going to be the top guy in the company for a long time.
Mhm.
And then obviously it didn't end up that way. I'm glad we got the run in AEW with him. I'm glad we got
Mhm.
that and the kind of the finale. I think we're going to see him wrestle again.
I do
But
too.
But like, I'm glad we got a proper run with him wrestling regularly in AEW and stuff. But I think about what if he didn't go through those injuries and had to
Yep.
retire like that, and he was
Very good one.
still wrestling regularly. That's a big one I think about. Um, yeah, those are the two that popped into the top of my head right away.
I guess myself as a younger fan, I go back to the invasion angle.
Oh yeah, if
What
they
what
actually had
what
the
if
stars.
what if they actually had a proper invasion angle and had all the WCW stars, everybody? I just feel like we missed so many dream match opportunities there.
Yeah,
That could have been really
that's a good
cool.
one.
And they could have kept WCW around as a brand. I feel like they it was the dumbest business decision ever to put Booker T and Buff on TV in Washington, Tacoma, Washington, instead of waiting 1 week later when it was in Atlanta, Georgia. I'll still just never understand that
Yep.
ever.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, they could have easily kept WCW
yeah.
around and just had, Vince could have had Shane run it, or Vince could have
Yep.
had one of his
Could have been another
side,
brand.
Bruce Pritchard, anybody. You could have had
Mhm,
any of your dudes that you're around run it. You could have kept
mhm.
that roster, and that could have been, a Wednesday night show or a Thursday night show, and you could have kept that going. And then when you felt like there were guys in WCW you wanted to bring over to WWF, you just kind of, okay, here we
Yeah.
go. And then,
Yep.
or if you had somebody in WWE that you weren't using, but you wanted to get them on TV, send them to WCW.
Yep. Yep.
They could have done that. I truly feel like that if the invasion angle would have had the Stings, the Ric Flairs,
Mhm.
Booker, I know Booker was there earlier than
Right.
some, but still Booker, DDP, Kevin
Hogan,
Nash.
Goldberg, all those
If it would have
guys.
had all those guys, it probably would have been the biggest wrestling angle in the history of time.
100%. 100%. I mean, that's just
Easily.
I mean, the fact that
You could have built that off for years, man. You
the
could have
fact
done that for years.
we never got a Stone Cold Goldberg match back then. We
Sting
never
and
got a
Taker.
or even though we've said how we feel about the guy, but even Hogan Austin, which was supposed to happen at one time, and then we
Yep.
got Holland Austin instead at Mania 18.
Yep.
It just blows my mind. I mean, we
Yep.
can do it on video games all day long, but
Mm-hmm.
we
Yeah.
never got it in person. And
That
and
is a good one now that I think about it. That is a really good one because that
and
would have
more
been a story ever told.
and more recently for me as a big AEW fan, I mean, I think there's 3 reasons, in my opinion, 3 more so than others, why WWE went like this and AEW went like this. I think was the Vince McMahon stuff,
Mhm.
Cody leaving, and Punk leaving. But one of my biggest what ifs is it involves Punk. It's what if Punk didn't dive into the crowd
And break his
after
foot.
Double or Nothing and break his foot?
Yeah.
Because that's when everything kind of snowballed on
Mhm.
his whole run in AEW because he was out and then, he came back and then we found out there was problems with him and Hangman and it just snowballed and never could recover.
Mhm.
If he never broke his foot, what could that have changed things? I don't know, but
Yeah.
that's a big
I
what if for me.
Yeah, that's a big one. That's a big one. I mean, I just remember, man, when he showed up, it was just one of those things where the whole wrestling world
The whole wrestling world. Yep.
was on it, man. And it was something that we all were so in that, and we were all just like,
Hmm.
I can't believe that this guy's back.
Hmm.
And then the stuff he was doing was good, and him and MJF, one of the true
Oh my
great
gosh.
rivalries of the modern era, like terrific. That
Hmm.
rivalry, the best rivalry AEW maybe still has ever had.
Yeah, that or Hangman Swerve,
Hangman
I
and
think.
Hangman
Yep.
Swerve, I would throw in Hangman Omega. That story
Yep.
was really good.
Yep. That's
But
really
Hangman
good.
and Swerve and Punk and MJF, to me, those are like
Hmm.
really just special things. But like I was I was in Las Vegas, oddly enough. That was SummerSlam 2021 weekend when he came back on that rampage on that Friday. And
Hmm.
it was me, it was the guy who runs Love Wrestling, Spencer Love, and our buddy Joel Pearl from Fightful. We were all
Hmm.
staying in a hotel room together. And it was a Friday night, 3 dudes in their 30s in Las Vegas. At the time,
What?
3 single dudes. Oh, no, I think Joel, but you know what I mean. 3 dudes in their
Right.
30s in
Right.
Las
Yeah.
Vegas. And we were in our hotel room at 10 p.m. on a Friday night with a laptop wired to the TV so we could see it on the TV watching CM Punk return.
I love it. I
And
love it.
that's all you need to know. That's all you
Yep.
need to know about what that meant to wrestling fans and everybody because we were in Las friggin' Vegas on a Friday night. We should be out doing debauchery. We should be out drinking, gambling.
Doing things
Not
we can't talk about.
correct. What happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. And we were 3 dudes in a hotel room watching
Oh,
CM Punk
that's
return on a
classic.
laptop.
Yeah.
That's what that meant.
Yeah.
That's what that meant.
When
And
when
look at
when it was good, it was good in
it was great.
AEW, but when it was bad, it was
Yeah,
bad.
look at it, and it got bad quick. It got bad
It
quick,
did.
unfortunately. But
Unfortunately, yep.
it is one of those things. I mean, that is a good one because really, like, he had just yeah. Because if he doesn't get hurt, he's there every week. He's the champ. He's
He was
doing
gonna
all these
face
things.
Tanahashi
Yeah, at
at
Forbidden
Forbidden
Door,
Door. That was
which
gonna
would
be
have been huge
fun.
for
I
him.
mean,
That would have been
yeah.
that would probably have been a bucket list thing for him. That probably
Yep.
would have made him feel really good about it, and he probably would have been like, "I couldn't do this shit over there." You know what I mean? So,
Yep.
like, that
Yep.
probably just would have kept, you know?
Yep.
Yeah, that is a good one because I do feel like
Yep.
him being on the shelf and not being able to be there, he probably was watching the product and getting a different set of eyes on the product and probably begrudgingly,
Yep.
I don't know.
Mhm.
I don't know how he
Yeah.
operates. But
Right.
like, yeah, I think if he was there every week still and doing the things that he was doing, and like Tony let him do what he wanted to do. If he had stories,
Whatever
Tony
he
very
wanna
much
do.
respected him to the point and liked him to the point where he was letting him do it. I do feel like if he was never hurt and there every week, and I don't know if we get to the point where he's like, I need to get the hell out of this place.
I don't know.
Yeah,
Could've been
that is
all
a good one.
different.
That is a good
Yep.
one. Yeah.
Yep.
What if
Yep. So
what one last one? What
mhm.
if Cody never left AEW?
I think, yeah. Well, being in Indianapolis for the Rumble, my wife and I are in line for the merchandise, and we're looking around all the promotional displays and everything. And I said to her, I said, it is hard to wonder. You look at these and you see Cody and Punk almost on every single one. It's hard to, as an AEW guy, and I like WWE too, but as an AEW guy who does AEW podcast, to think, my God, they had
Yeah.
both these guys,
Mhm.
and they let them both go.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
just, yeah, because, and I will be honest, going back to Cody's run in AEW, it had its highs and lows.
Of course.
I mean, it got on that Cody Island there for a little bit in
That was the problem.
20,
That was the
2021, and it was just
once
kind of
they
out
said
there.
that once they said that he could not win the world title, that was
I don't,
that was the start. To me, I was like, why would you ever do that?
yeah,
No, no,
and
you want to make the stipulation in the match. That's fine. He should win the
yeah,
match.
yeah,
He
yeah,
should have he should
and
have beat Jericho anyway. But like,
yes, yes,
yeah, he's Cody Rhodes, dude. He's the guy of the company. Give him the fucking belt. Give him
hmm
the belt.
yep,
I don't know if I can drop an
yep.
F bomb. Sorry, but
Oh
like,
yeah, you can. That's fine.
give him the belt. Like, what are you doing, dude? Like, what do you
Yeah,
give him the belt? Like, I understand why Jericho was the first champion. He 100% needed to be.
yes,
He 100% was the right choice to be their first champion. He gave them credibility immediately. They needed that. But when you get to that match, and I understand they did the MJF turn after, I get it. But what
hmm
if MJF turned on him when Cody was the champ?
then you're
MJF
strapping a
doesn't need
rocket
to
to that boy.
MJF doesn't
Yep,
need to win the belt the first time he faces Cody, but if he
right.
turns on Cody after Cody's the champ, and then MJF, who was the young gun back then, he wasn't the MJF we know now, he's getting a world title match that early in his career. That is like, oh damn, who's this kid? Who's this kid? Where
Yeah,
the hell did this kid come
yeah,
from?
yep,
And then he loses, and that just adds to the story of, and again, MJF's a top guy, he's fine, but
hmm
like he didn't, he wasn't hurt by that at all. But I think about that
yep,
and I'm just like, you make the decision that he can never win the world title again, and then you kind of create that Cody verse where everything
yes,
what he was doing didn't really intertwine with anything else that was happening on the show.
at all,
And it was
at
just
all.
like that is like nah, it just didn't feel right for a long time. And
Yeah.
Cody knew it.
Oh
And
yeah.
I think that was part of the reason that led to him probably leaving, as he knew he was
hmm
probably like, I don't know if we can come back from this.
Yep.
'Cause the only way we
Yep.
can is to reverse that what we said and have me win the title.
And it's interesting when he left in the start of 2022, I was really digging what I thought where his character was going.
Mhm.
So I thought we were finally going to get a heel
Yeah.
Cody in AEW, and we just never got it. I mean, I
No,
never thought in a million years he was going to go to the WWE, but
me
in
neither.
hindsight, best decision he ever made for his career. I mean,
100%.
look how they're using the guy now.
Yep, 100%. But that's a big what if on the AEW side of
Oh
it
yeah,
too is
big time.
what if Cody never left? Or
Yep.
what if they,
Cody leaving, Punk, all the Punk stuff, and honestly, the Vince McMahon stuff too, because
oh yeah.
when they actually got a genuine good human in charge of creative over there that wasn't stale and wasn't out of the times, look
Mhm.
what happened to the product.
Yep, 100%.
Yep.
100%.
Yep. So, well, JPJ, it has been fun, man. I appreciate you taking the time today to do this with me. And where can everybody find you? I know you're all over the place.
I know, I do a decent amount of stuff. Thanks for having me. First and foremost, this was a lot
Yeah,
of fun. Um, yeah, so you can find me. I do most of my stuff over on Love Wrestling. So if you go to Love Wrestling CA, as in Canada, it's based out of Canada. Um, you can find us there on all social media platforms. My shows directly Thursday nights, 8 p.m. Eastern time. Me and my main man Pluggo, we do a show called Between Two Beards. We've been doing it coming up on 4 years this year. We've been
that's
doing
crazy,
it. So
man.
that's a long time. Yeah. It's the flagship show over at Love Wrestling every Thursday night. Then I do a show every Tuesday and Thursday mornings over on Love Wrestling at 10 a.m. Eastern time with my co-host Drew Nicholas. It's called Firmly Love Wrestling. We talk WWE on Tuesdays. We talk AEW on Thursdays. You can follow me at JPJ Loves Gaming on all social media platforms. I also have a Twitch and a YouTube. I do play a lot of games over on Twitch as well. A lot of sports games, MLB The Show, Madden, WWE. I play other games too, but it's really a variety sports kind of thing that we do there. And then I just recently joined the crew over at bodyslam.net. I do the post show after Monday Night Raw. They call them Raw Dogs is the show. So yeah, good little pun there. And I joined over there with Nick and Corey. I've been doing that for a few weeks now. So bodyslam.net on Mondays after Raw. And then for any wrestling fans on my channel, the JPJ Loves Gaming, the WWE shows every week, Monday, Tuesdays, and Fridays, we do watch alongs over there. Not really like the reaction watch alongs that you'll see a lot of. It's more just I invite a couple friends and we just kind of hang out and chill and talk wrestling, watch wrestling, have a good time. Like obviously we react when things happen, but it's not some of the ones you see. It's not like that. It's not like that. It's more of a chill vibe. But yeah, that's where you can find me everywhere. So
Love it, man. Love it, man. You're one of the good ones out there in the
appreciate that.
wrestling
Appreciate that.
content world.
I try.
So
I try.
thanks again. We'll have to do this again sometime.
I will do it as many times as you want. This was a blast. So I
Uh,
definitely
Appreciate it.